I watch Suits religiously before going to law school. Learning how to keep your head down, being humble, and working hard creates value.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work for free. Just tell us what we have to do. Nosotros podemos resolver esto. Mira, te doy 200 pesos y nos vamos. If any lawyer tells you they're going to guarantee you money, that's a lie. I know I'm not as smart as these guys, so I just got to outwork them.
Welcome to another episode of the Transform Podcast. I'm here today with Anthony, friend of mine, an attorney as a matter of fact, and we're bringing you some actionable information today on how to transform your health, wealth, and relationships. Without further ado, Anthony, my brother, thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me here in this beautiful office.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tell the audience, who is Anthony?
I'm a personal injury lawyer. We handle personal injury matters, homeowners insurance matters, so mainly insurance law. Originally, I did not think I was going to be a lawyer. Growing up, Westchester, that was my stomping grounds growing up. My mom's a teacher. I have 5 older brothers, younger sister. I was the first in my family to go to law school and, end up graduating law school. And it's been a ride, growing up. I played baseball my whole life, got sick my freshman year of high school.
Man.
Wasn't able to keep playing, stumped my growth. It was a whole headache. And I remember the doctor was like, well, baseball's over. And I had 2 options, either I do nothing with my life or, I started hitting the books. And that was really the turning point for me to really, start hitting home. And I remember freshman year, a lawyer came in, Southwest, he came to speak to us. Southwest was still rolling out. They were starting a business magnet, and then for some reason, they had an attorney present. And I was talking to him, and I was fascinated because he did criminal law. And, growing up, I had a lot of family members that had criminal pasts. So I was like, this is probably something I can do. I'll represent, the people and, those that are wrongfully accused. And growing up, I actually had a criminal case really close to home. And during that time, money goes out the window. Attorneys are billing you left and right. We went from living in a beautiful home there in Westchester to 6 of us living in inefficiency.
Wow.
So, it really transformed me to the point where I started reading that story. I started reading my family story, started going into books, reading about the case. And, it was something that completely changed me. I was like, wow, this is something I can do. And ever since that moment, I knew I wanted to do law. So I went to FIU, got a double bachelor's, political science, and then in international relations. I didn't know if I wanted to go the political route just because for me, I don't think it was in my cards per se.
Right.
I think having that spotlight on you can be difficult at times. And you really don't have a private life. Yeah. And something I value a lot is family. Growing up, I have a lot of siblings. We're a very close-knit family. So that's something I wanted to make sure that when I graduated and when I had my own family, kids of my own, I had time for them.
For sure.
And so
let me jump in there. That's an incredible story of overcoming. How do you go from dealing with all these issues very close to home to deciding this is actually something that I want to pursue to make a difference? What's the mindset like?
I think it comes to a point where you're at a crossroads and you can do one of 2 things. It's that instinct, fight or flight.
Right.
And at that point, you got to decide for yourself, am I going to continue down this path and, blame everybody else? Or am I going to do something about it and, try to change my family tree? Which by all means, my family's, it's amazing. My dad's great. He builds race engines for, prominent race car drivers. My mom, she's the best teacher down south in Miami. And we had a good upbringing, but you never know because in the blink of an eye, your life can change.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I was like, I'll make sure this never happens again. Or I'll make sure that going forward, I'm going to supply a lifestyle that my family never could have dreamed of. And I think that's the immigrant mentality where your parents come from a certain position. My dad came from Cuba when he was 14 years old, had twins at 17 years old.
Wow.
Me, I wouldn't be able to do that. My dad was living at a church at 17 years old with 2 kids. That stays with me everywhere I go, because if he can go from that, that initial hit that he had when he came from Cuba, because he didn't know the language. He was in a world that really was completely different from home.
Yeah.
His mom was at home, back in Cuba. His sisters were back in Cuba. His brother was back in Cuba. And taking that risk is really what made me say, it's time to take a risk. Because in your 20s, you got to take calculated risk.
For sure.
And it's all about, the 20s is that time where you're grinding every day, in, out, but you got to do it with a plan. Because a lot of people have this grind mentality, but they're grinding for no reason.
Right.
What are you grinding for? You're grinding 2K, you're grinding Call of Duty. But you gotta really hunker down and say, I'm not living for today's success. I'm living for tomorrow's. And a lot of people just put their head down, they go to work every day and they grind, but they don't know what they're grinding for. So a lot of people get confused.
So tell me about the difference. There's a significant difference here between having an objective or an aim where you're heading to and not having one. Tell me more about that. Tell me exactly what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is you got to have a plan, because you can go day in, day out, work for something, but if it's like a sailor. If you don't have your compass and you don't know how to navigate the seas, you're just going to drift. And the more you drift, the more lost you get. Mm-hmm. But a good sailor can navigate rough seas. And all the rough seas are going to make him better. And it's one of those things where you got to put your head down, you got to look at your vision, and this is the time for it. When you're in your 20s, that's the time to put your head down, build that blueprint, and every day you're not working for tomorrow's success, but you're working towards that end goal. You're not working for now, you're working for the future. And people get lost. And if you hear any success story, everybody always talks about the grind period.
Yeah.
That first year, that second year, the third year, that struggle period. And it's almost like from one day to the next.
The overnight success.
They break the ceiling. And it's not overnight success, because a lot of people see these TikTokers, they see these influencers, and they think these guys made it, and they're so lucky because all they do is do a video here, do a video there. No, they were consistent.
Yeah.
And they were consistently working towards that end goal. And
sure.
Now they're reaping the benefits. And it doesn't mean that they're still not grinding just as hard. They're grinding in different areas. Because all these influencers that have made it, if you look back, they put 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of work into it. Not seeing a dollar. Yeah. People doubting them. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Where are you going with this? And it's one of those things where as long as you have that vision in your mind and that end goal, nobody can knock you down. It's one of those things where people are always going to try to knock you down, but you got to have that ambition and that drive, and just keep working towards it, and don't let people hold you down.
That's beautiful, brother. Where does the mindset come from?
The mindset, I think it all started, just growing up with an immigrant family. I think my upbringing, playing sports, all that taught me discipline. And when you're at that crossroads in your life, you got to choose how to apply yourself. And apply myself to go to law school and, doing the things we did. I mean, I met Travis my first year of law school. Travis is my business partner, one of my best friends, closest. He's my brother at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So Travis and I met first day of law school.
Wow.
And in law school, your first year is very competitive. Everybody's kind of pitted against each other. Everybody wants to maintain scholarships. They want to be on top of the curve. And, you have people that they call gunners. And in law school, the gunner, he's the guy that's answering every question. He's the one that's taking every note. He's 2 weeks ahead in class. I remember the first day of class, the first day of Intro to Legal Studies. It's a program that St. Thomas offers for, when you just get into law school. I had no idea what I was doing. I got to law school. I was completely lost. And I just knew I have this Intro to Legal Studies program. It'll give me an idea of, what law school is like. And I was like, okay, so I've seen every law school movie. I watched Suits religiously before going to law school. And I went the first day in a suit. And I looked around, nobody else was wearing suits.
Wow. And
I remember there was a professor that he looks at me and he goes, I love the way you carry yourself. I was like, this suit thing, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
So I started going every day in suits. And Travis originally, he's like, dude, I don't like that guy. That guy's wearing a suit. and the first day of intro to legal studies program, it's kind of like a 2-week boot camp before law school. And after those 2 weeks, they basically post everybody on a list. The top 80% get posted on a certain list. And you have your anonymous number, and then you have your score, like where you ranked in intro to legal studies program. I believe it was like the top 5% get a scholarship and the top 10% get a separate scholarship. I went into that program. I had a great scholarship from St. Thomas when I got accepted. So I went into that, thinking, okay, well, if I got a scholarship, I did really well in undergrad, I should do well here. But it was one of those things where it's intimidating because you're going into something you don't know.
Right.
And I think the unknown is scary.
For everybody. Yeah.
Exactly. So when I go in and I'm looking at all ththese people, I'm like, wow, these guys are geniuses. I'm feeling lost already. I'm like, wow, like imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here, man? I'm a guy from Westchester. Like, there's no way I could do this. Like, I'm in over my head. I'll go the political route. Now.
That's good. That's a good one.
And I do this program, and it was the scariest thing in the world. I take the test, and I was like, wow, I felt comfortable. I was like, I did well. I was like, I think I did well. And I remember I was in the library every single day of those 2 weeks up until they closed the library.
Grinding it out.
And across from me was always Travis. I was like, I can't leave until that guy leaves.
Wow.
And I was just grinding, head down, grinding. And when the scores came out and they posted it on the door, I remember you have this breezeway when you walk into St. Thomas, and then to the left, it's like this open area where everyone sits and talks. It's a great place. And to your left, you have this hallway that goes into the classrooms, and that's where they posted the list. And when I'm looking for my number, I'm like searching through, I can't find it. I'm like, holy crap, like, there must be a mistake or whatever. And then I remember I had asked one of the administrators, I'm like, hey, I didn't see my number. She's like, well, that means you weren't in the top 80%. And when she told me that, I was like, wow, that's when it all hit me. I was like, maybe I'm not cut out for this, It was one of those like awakening moments. I'm like, I gotta maintain a 2.6 GPA, which for, on the outside looking in, doesn't seem like a high GPA, but the way law school works is they grade you on a curve. And the curve was a 2.2, I believe, or 2.4.
So this is like the 20% higher than the curve.
No, so the crazy thing is the curve means most people need to land in that 2.2 to the 2.4 range. So if they give an A in the class, they got to give a failing grade to make a 2.0. They got to balance it out. So law school professors don't give a lot of A's. There's always a few A's and then a lot of B's and C's and then some D's and F's. So that means I was like, okay, so if I'm not even in the top 70% of the class or top 80% of the class, I'm gonna lose my scholarship next semester.
Wow.
So that was the oh shit moment. Excuse my language.
Yeah, it's cool.
Excuse my language, but at that point I was like, okay, I got to do something different. So I changed my whole study habits. Everything that I knew, I threw out the window. And once again, I just started grinding and put my head down, and the first week of school starts. And I remember there's this girl in the class, and she looks at me and she goes, hey, did you do the extra credit? I said, what extra credit? And I look at Travis, because Travis was sitting next to me when we came in. Did you do the extra credit? He goes, dude, what extra credit? And she goes, oh wait, you guys aren't 3 weeks ahead? What? Oh, you're gonna fall behind. And I was like, there is no way. And when I look at the syllabus, she was 3 weeks ahead. And I was freaking out. And I remember the professor, they always try to scare you. And this professor goes, guys, I just want to tell you, you guys don't know what you're in for yet.
Wow.
He's like, one of you guys, you're going to see next semester, one of the guys you're sitting next to, they're not going to be here. And that's how law school works. And we were all like freaking out. And I'm like, this lady's 3 weeks ahead. What am I doing?
So what was the mindset at this point? Aside from freaking out.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where part of me was like, I should have researched more, but at the same time, I was like, why would I get ahead of myself? The syllabus says, be prepared for the next class. And be prepared for the next class means you read about 14 cases, you know those cases inside and out. And what we realized really fast was she was 3 weeks ahead of the syllabus, but when it came down to asking the questions for this week,
she was not prepared.
She was lost. And I think, that's when the adapt moment comes, and you gotta put your blinders on, forget the outside noise, and worry about yourself, and, build that study group and just grind, because everybody else has their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
And although she was 3 weeks ahead, it didn't mean that she was
more advanced than you guys.
More advanced or gonna have
more knowledge.
Achieve more knowledge. And it was more about learning everything the right way, and actually hunkering down on the knowledge that you need, and then building towards the end goal, which was taking that final exam. And I think after midterm, so actually I'm going ahead of myself. So after the second week of law school, this is already law school starting, and Travis was always on the other end from me. I went up to him, I'm like, hey man, let's just study together.
Smart guy.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, let's just study together. And then I found out Travis was top 5 in the ILS program. And I was like, dude, you're an animal. He's like, nah, man. And Travis is super humble, always straightforward. He's like, look, I know I'm not as smart as these guys, so I just got to outwork them.
Wow.
And that was his mentality. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I was like, well, let's outwork them together. And it was the unhealthiest period of our life. We were drinking energy drinks 2 to 3 a day, like nonstop energy drinks, but we were in that library from the moment class ended till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. every single day. And it was repeat the cycle every single day, day in, day out. And people would come up to us and be like, hey guys, would you guys be able to help us, or would you be able to study with us? And that's where being a real and a true person comes out, because we always try to offer help for everybody. And a lot of people in law school, they try to keep everything to themselves,
right,
because of the competition. And it was one of those moments where you keep your bridges open, because you never know what happens down the road. You never know what happens in life, and things happen, and the people you least expect to show up for you are the ones that do. They remember that time you were nice.
100%.
They remember, hey, Anthony, that guy was cool to me. Or Travis is an amazing person. And I think, that's the main thing. You gotta leave impressions with everybody you meet, because the day of tomorrow, you never know, what's going on.
Goes around, comes around, brother.
Exactly.
Tell me, you just gave me an incredible image of the grind. Tell me what people perceive as the overnight success, that graduation day. What did you guys do after leaving law school?
So graduating law school was something, it was surreal, because it's like you work so hard for 3 years, and you finally, it's more like 7 years. You work hard undergrad, you work hard for those 3 years of law school, but it's only the beginning.
Right.
Because now you have to take the bar exam.
A monster, right?
The bar exam was by far one of the hardest things I've had to do. Probably the hardest.
Wow.
I walked out of the bar exam. I turned off all communications. I wanted to cry the whole night. I thought I failed it, and it was something rough. And a lot of people, they only see the title. They see lawyer. They don't see anything else.
Yeah, they don't see the struggle at all.
They don't see that grind period. And when Travis and I graduated law school, throughout the whole time we were in law school, Travis and I had a crazy idea. And everybody was like, you guys are crazy. And we were like, no, we're going to start a law firm out of law school. And I remember I asked the professor, and so we started at St. Thomas. After our first year, we both transferred together to FIU, and that's where we ultimately graduated from. But there's this one professor at St. Thomas who I told him, I was like, hey, I want to start a law firm out of law school. How can I do it? He goes, Anthony, I'll be honest with you, you won't be able to.
Wow.
He goes, you don't know how many failures I see that people try to start this law firm out of law school and they fail.
Why?
And it's just this notion in the legal community that you need to have all this experience. Everyone's scared of malpractice. You're going to commit malpractice. You don't know what you're doing yet. You need to practice. And for Travis and I, we're like, why are we in law school? Why are we working? And we knew, obviously, we needed to prepare ourselves for starting a law firm together. And by that, we wanted to get all the experience we can. So while we were in law school, we actually had a law school classmate who, she was married to our mentor. We have many mentors, and obviously starting a law practice, it wouldn't have been possible without people to lean on and people to help and guide us, because you got to have mentors.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things, because without mentors, once again, you're navigating these seas blind. And every now and then you run into a roadblock, and you know, the best advice always comes from your mentors.
Because they have the experience ahead of you, right? And they can make a difference or help you shortcut your path to your end goal, right?
Exactly. And while we were in law school, one of our classmates came up to us. She goes, hey, my husband owns this firm. You know, if you guys want experience, by all means, you know, feel free to go work with him.
Wow.
We walked in, we were like, hey, we'll work. We just want to learn. And we just put our heads down. We showed up every day, every night. We were just here.
That's incredible.
All day, just getting experience, because we knew that if we wanted to start the firm, we needed that experience. You know, fast forward a few months, St. Thomas is still in our first year of law school. St. Thomas has this orientation, and we hear this gentleman speaking about how it was funny because they had a panelist of different attorneys that were all successful in their own right. You know, everybody has their own success story.
Right.
And one of them was like, I graduated #1 in my class, and the other one's like, I was #2 in the class. This other person, you know, like, I was #1, I clerked for so-and-so, and this gentleman comes out and he goes, I'll be honest, I'm the least qualified to be up here.
Wow.
And he's like, I was a C student. He goes, I think I got 1A in law school. But then he was, you know, he goes, but 4 months after graduation, I started my own law firm. And we're one of the first multi-million-dollar law firms to do it right out of law school.
That's incredible.
From St. Thomas. And I was like, wow. Like,
that inspired you, I'm sure.
Oh, Travis and I, our eyes just lit up right then and there. And I was like, I want to learn from that guy. I need him to be my mentor. So we also want to learn insurance. So we were like, okay, well, let's reach out to that gentleman. So like we do, Travis and I knocked on his door. We're like, hey, we're here to learn. We just want to work for free. And we knew we didn't provide value, because everybody wants that high paying job. Everybody wants the 6 figures, or they want to be making X amount per hour. But what value are you bringing to a company that's got to train you, that's got to, you know, teach you the goals and the ropes? And by all means, compensation is great, but we were at a position where knowledge was invaluable. So we walked in and we were like, hey, we'll work for free. Just tell us what we have to do. And he loved that attitude. And this is one of our other mentors, amazing men, great lawyers, and we just started working with them, learning the insurance game, left and right, you know, just heads down again, grinding out.
How long did you work there?
So we worked at a different firm each year of law school.
Okay.
So basically, the 3 years of law school, we used it as one, you know, a learning period. We were learning the black letter law, but then we were getting the real world experience that we needed. And it got to a certain point where at every law firm we started working for free. The moment we started providing real value and they started seeing our work ethic, they all of them started paying us.
Incredible. I always love this question, because it's so common to hear this word value, but a lot of the times it's hard to articulate what it entails to provide value. In your experience, what meant going into this firm without no experience and having the ability to at some point provide value? What was that?
I think it was one of the greatest feelings. You know, when you're trusted as an intern or a law clerk, and the attorney can trust you to, you know, Anthony, I want you to review this contract, and write all your annotations, write all your notes on it, give it back to me. And when the lawyer can review that contract and give you back an empty sheet, give you back the same contract you edited and said you did an amazing job, that's where you see all your hard work is paying off.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to work under an attorney, and every time I'd give him something, he'd have a million corrections. He'd be like, Anthony, what are you doing? Like, come on, you're better than this. And he'd always say, you're better than this. Think like a lawyer. You're about to be a lawyer in a year. Wow. Think like a lawyer. And it was like that big brother attitude.
Tough love, yeah.
Yeah, it was that big brother attitude. He'd always be like, you're better than this. Think like a lawyer. Speak like a lawyer. Act like a lawyer. And it was always like a lawyer, like a lawyer. And he wasn't treating me like a law clerk or an intern. He was treating me like a lawyer. And he was holding me to that standard.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was getting frustrated. I'm like, dude, do I do anything right? And I remember as time went on, the corrections got less and less and less. And then I started getting the good job. Good job. And I remember our last day, for the first time ever, and you know, he gave a heartfelt speech to us, and you know, he took us out to dinner, and he said we became lawyers quicker than he did.
Wow.
And that was a crazy compliment, because he is one of the best lawyers we know. And it was nice to get that, that confirmation, like, yeah, we're doing the thing.
So if I heard you right, becoming more valuable means in your setting, right, as an attorney in practice, right, meant that you went from being just a student to go into the position where you were actually able to contribute to the firm and what they were trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah, it was one of those things where you want to be able to, I feel like you got to have the confidence and you got to have, that experience level to back you up. But experience comes in different forms.
Yeah.
And it's something Travis and I try to stress to everybody. If you put the work in, you can start a firm out of law school. It shouldn't be this unconscionable, scheme or this unevent. Like, there should be more programs in school to help young lawyers start their own practice, because what law school does, it teaches you how to think like a lawyer. It teaches you how to solve problems.
Right.
And once you have that ingrained in your mentality and you're able to read a statute and be able to apply that to the law and get facts and apply it to the law, then you can find a solution to that problem. And a lot of people don't realize that that mentality is what's going to help you in practice. And everything else, how do you get experience? When you start working at a big law firm, they're going to get a stack of files and give you 100 cases and be like, start working. People have the comfort level of knowing they're working under a firm. They're working under this license. Yeah, they could reach out to other lawyers at the firm, ask for help, ask for advice. But you can do that on your own accord too if you surround yourself with the right people. If you get your mentors, you ask for. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's one of those things, like, nothing is possible without help. Everybody has a mentor. Everybody has someone that helps guide them. For sure. And some people have family members that are lawyers. They have big brothers that are lawyers, sisters, cousins, friends. And as long as you keep good relationships with people and you're honest and you're a straightforward person, you can make things happen. And it was one of those moments where learning how to keep your head down, being humble and working hard creates value.
Yeah.
It's the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's one of the best quotes.
That just says it all, man. So tell me about the struggles. Now you have your practice. You're out of school. You're finally an attorney. You guys are going into business. Tell me about some of the struggles that you went through.
Oh, there's a lot.
Probably to this day, right?
Yeah. No, it's that building process is scary.
Yeah.
And I remember Travis and I had this mentality. We didn't know how we were going to get cases. I mean, we were like, okay, well, we're lawyers now. I remember sitting there getting our results, and Travis and I like, we're lawyers now. I was like, where's our office? Travis was like, my apartment.
Yeah, there you go.
Crafty. We went to the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Club. They were throwing away desks. They were giving them away. We found it on Craigslist. We rented a U-Haul truck. Went over there. We threw those desks on behind the U-Haul truck. We drove them back to Travis's apartment. We grabbed Travis's couches. We threw his couches away, and his living room became our apartment.
Wow.
And I would drive down from the Redlands all the way up to Hollandale Beach, and that's where we'd work every single day, just day in, day out, working out of his apartment. And I remember when we got our first client, it was scary, like, oh wow, I'm actually helping somebody. I'm doing.
What do we do now, right?
Exactly. It's like, okay, well, we got our first client. Let's work towards this. And we started, it was a car accident case, and we started helping with the property damage. We started helping, and it was all the years of experience. Once it starts culminating together, then you start like putting two and two together. And then I would call my friends that are paralegals all the time because they were like my lifeline at the time. I was like, hey, so I just got this case. We're at the very beginning stages, and I worked for about 3 months in the intake department, and I just wanted to make sure I was doing everything right. It's like, this is a real person, a real case. Let's do it one by one. And I had the experience. I knew exactly what I was doing, but having somebody to just relay it off, bounce it off. Hey, I need to send this. Okay, perfect, boom. And I already had it drafted. I would send it out. And I remember our client, she was an elderly woman, didn't have a lot of money, in a very rough position because she had gotten rear-ended by a Jeep.
Wow.
And she would tell me all the time, I'm in pain, this hurts. And Travis and I were networking while we were working and going to law school, and we were meeting providers, medical providers, to help because we knew this is what we wanted to do. And we would always ask to tour the facility because the last thing you want to do, and that's a misconception we'll talk about later as well, but a lot of these medical providers in our field in personal injury, you got to make sure you're working with the right ones because there's a lot of people that are in this game for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And not everybody's like that, but there are people that are only in it for the money. So we would tour facilities to make sure that we're sending clients, and not sending clients, but referring clients to good businesses, good places. So when a client comes up to us and asks us, hey, do you have any medical providers you guys work with? Then we can tell them, hey, we have these 5 in your area. Whichever one you feel more comfortable with, by all means, feel free to go. And this elderly woman, I will never forget, we had given her 3 options because really that's all we really knew at the time. We didn't know a lot of different providers, but we were like, hey, we work with these 3. If you feel like you want to go to another one, by all means, feel free to do so. And she chose one, and she was amazed by the services. She was feeling better within like 2 months.
Awesome.
We were able to get her policy limits within 3 months, which is a really fast, great case, great result, and it was our first Google review. And
what was that like the moment that you knew that this is where it was?
It was such a good feeling because we were able to get her compensated for her injuries. She was able to pay her medical treatment. She was able to get paid for her pain and suffering, and she was the most grateful, one of the greatest clients we've ever had, and we were lucky that she was one of our first clients. She fell in love with the medical provider. She said that they gave her the best medical treatment in the world.
Wow.
And because of us, she's back on the road. Like she's driving again. She's
That's
doing
awesome,
great.
man. That's awesome.
She's doing great. So Travis and I were like, wow,
how was the celebration that night?
None. We were paying bills.
Oh, for real? That's crazy.
No. The celebration is just knowing you did, you're doing the right thing. And it was that affirmation, like, okay, all the work we put in, all that experience we grinded for those 4 years paid off. Because really, we had 4 years of experience by the time we started in this area. We were working at it for 4 years. And our last year of law school, we worked at strictly do personal injury, and he really taught us how to push these cases and really fight the insurance companies and get your name out there. And that's what we did. We followed that path, and we used kind of his system in the way we pushed that case forward. And we're like, okay, but we put our own twist to it. Based on every law firm we worked at, all of our mentors, we kind of got all that knowledge together, put our own twist to it, and threw it out there. And it was really cool to see everything.
I wanted to ask you about that, as a matter of fact, because there's so many law practices and styles. Why did you decide to go into this insurance injury law? How do you decide that to start?
So originally I wanted to do criminal law.
Okay.
As I told you, my upbringing, I thought criminal law was the route I wanted to go to.
Right.
And the more you read about criminal cases, and the more when you start realizing the implications that a criminal law has, it's a scary thing to think about. And you got to have a different mentality. You got to have you really can't take things too hard. Sometimes you got to everybody needs representation. I do believe that, but sometimes you got to represent killers, rapists, and
so that could be tough on your mindset and stuff, right?
Exactly. And it was one of those things where obviously everyone needs representation, and one personally wrongfully convicted is too much.
Got it.
And it's one of those things where everybody needs the best representation possible. I don't know if I was able to do that given some of the allegations some of these criminal defendants face.
Got it, yeah.
And
so maybe you had your own biases, yeah.
I knew my own bias, and I was like, you know what, this isn't for me.
I get it.
And then I don't know if you remember Pokemon Go. So this is what made me get into personal injury. Yeah. So I remember when the whole Pokemon Go craze was going on. I was with one of my friends. He's a banker as well.
Wow, cool.
I was with one of my friends, and we were playing Pokemon Go. And it was just this craze. It was like that nostalgia feeling, and we were playing Pokemon Go. And then we were at FIU. And once we finished playing, we got in our cars and we started leaving. And I was with me, had my girlfriend with me at the time, and still my girlfriend, but she was with us at the time. And I had my little sister in the car. And we were going down 107th and 42nd, And we were getting to that intersection, and it was super late at night, and this lady just T-bones us.
Wow.
Sends us spinning. Her car went spinning, total loss, smoke everywhere. And I remember that woozy feeling and kind of like freaking out a little bit. And then, I turned around, my girlfriend was crying, my sister was crying, everybody was super scared, and it was chaotic. And he was like,
the initial shock.
He was like staring like this, and he looks at me, he's like, "You guys okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think everybody's fine." And this lady had just ran the red light like crazy.
Wow.
And fast forward, everybody, we were young, and we, when you're young and you get in an accident, a lot of people think, "Oh, I feel better after 2 weeks, I'm okay." It's crazy. There's two reasons that this changed my perspective on what kind of law I did. The first was 2 months later, demand letter from the lady that she was suing him for $100,000.
What?
Yeah, and I was like, dude, there is no way that this lady's suing you right now. So the first reason I was like, okay, well, that's definitely a big problem. And what happened shouldn't happen to anybody. People need them to fight liability.
Yeah.
Didn't know how he was going to get his car fixed because he was in this weird limbo stage where the insurance companies were fighting each other about who was liable for the accident. So his car wasn't getting fixed because they were determining liability, and didn't want to hire a lawyer because at the time, he just, he didn't
know any better.
And the thing is, a lot of people don't want to, they're scared of the legal process.
Okay.
And, sometimes you need a lawyer to make the process simple, just worry about feeling better. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people get involved in an accident. They don't want to deal with lawyers. They have this misconception that, lawyers are just, they're bad, and personal injury lawyers are ambulance chasers, and, we don't want to deal with none of that headache. And I respect that decision as well, but there's also benefits to hiring the right personal injury lawyer. Because a lot of personal injury lawyers won't help you with your property damage, because really there's no money in that.
Right.
So that's a service we offer our clients because we know how hard it is to get your car fixed after an accident.
Wow.
And it's, I just remember that instance, and I was like, wow, so Brandon's getting sued over here for this lady taking the red light. That's just wrong. And he's hurt, I'm hurt. The car was destroyed, total loss. No one's helping him with the property damage. It was a crazy situation. And then fast forward 2 years, and now I start feeling a little back pain here and there. I start feeling like a little pinch on my back. And you don't realize all that dates back to that accident.
Wow. You
end up getting a herniated disc. You get a disc bulge. And these are permanent injuries that you would have never known you had. And they start showing up 2-3 years down the road, or when you exercise, when you do some type of activity, something to that extent. So it's a crazy situation to find yourself in, for sure.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I think that's super common and happens to a lot of people on a daily basis. If somebody gets to an accident, what should be the first step that they take?
First thing you got to do is call 911. Okay. A lot of people don't call the police. You always have somebody come up to you and they'll be like, mira, nosotros podemos resolver esto, mira, te doy 200 pesos y nos vamos.
Right.
I'll give you $200 and we go our separate ways. And that's the worst thing you can do after an accident. You have to have it documented. Documentation is the most important. And two, you gotta have the police come evaluate the situation. If you're injured, you gotta have somebody treat you. You gotta have somebody look at you and make sure you're okay. So I would say first things first, call the police, get a report done, make sure you're okay, make sure no one else is injured. If you are injured, if you start feeling, because a lot of people feel pain 2-3 days later, even weeks later, that's when they start feeling the pain.
Right.
Florida has a PIP statute, so you got to treat within
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks to get treated before, if you want PIP to cover your injuries. And I would say definitely, get treated, or at least get evaluated, just to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Just go see a doctor, have the doctor check you out, say, okay, boom, you're okay. And of course, the next thing is calling a lawyer, calling the right lawyer.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. And I'm not the only option. There's a lot of great lawyers out there. There's amazing lawyers that, they provide great services. But I'll definitely, ask your lawyer questions. How are you going to help me with the property damage? Because some lawyers do, others don't. It's all about asking the right questions. If any lawyer tells you they're going to guarantee you money, that's a lie. That's the biggest lie out of left field. If they tell you this is going to be done in 3 months, that's also a lie. I have cases that settle in 2 weeks. I've had cases that settle in a year. I have cases that are going to trial.
Because it's a negotiation, right?
Exactly.
Between the person that, had the accident or the injury and the insurance company, right?
I would say there's a lot of factors to it.
Okay.
Sometimes the insurance companies don't want to offer anything. Sometimes they don't believe, they're liable. A lot of times they'll say, actually, your client was speeding, so we're not going to pay anything. And there's certain scenarios where a lot of lawyers don't go into litigation. That's another question you got to ask your lawyer. Do you litigate cases? Are you willing to go to trial for me? Because you want a lawyer that's willing to fight to you to the very end. You don't want a lawyer that's going to go to a certain point and then tell you, hey, you're on your own now.
Wow.
And we get clients all the time where they come up to us and they're like, hey, I had this previous attorney, can you help me? And it's one of those things where you got to be honest with the client and tell them, hey, this is going to be a process. And, in your case, it might take a year, it might take 2 years. But just know, whenever you call us, so we have 2 lines, because communication with lawyers is a big problem.
Right.
And, when Travis and I we always read, every week we read, bar complaints, disciplinary actions, and see why lawyers are getting in trouble. It's one of those things where it keeps you mindful of the things that are going on in the legal industry and how to make sure our firm never has to be on that board or on that list. So the biggest thing is communication. Every lawyer, not every lawyer obviously, but most lawyers that have bar complaints or have issues with the Florida bar, it's because of communication, lack thereof.
Right.
So we have 2 lines. We have the office line, where you can reach the best paralegals in Miami. You can reach, the best team in Miami. And then you have the attorney line, because a lot of people feel comfortable speaking directly to an attorney. So whenever we're available, we always have that attorney line. You could text that number. You could call that number. Whenever we get a chance, if we're not in court or we're not in a hearing, we can always return that call immediately.
That's amazing.
And it's something nice that clients do appreciate. We always tell them, hey, if it's the day-to-day stuff, obviously talk to the team about it. If it's an emergency or you need some reassurance, feel free to call us. And, clients have that peace of mind knowing, their attorney's just one phone call away.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I've noticed, I'm in banking, right, as you know, I've noticed that the more people I give my cell phone, the less it rings. It's just people get the peace of mind of, I have his cell phone, I could definitely reach out to him when I have an issue, and they never do. Because they have that peace of mind, that security and safety of knowing that they're just one phone call away. Tell me, you've mentioned a ton today of misconceptions today. Ambulance chasers, like communication is a big issue. Tell me about another misconception in the law field. I have a ton, right? Like they're gonna take my money and not actually deliver results. Like, how do you call it? Empty promises without actually doing anything for me. What are some common misconceptions you've heard about the field?
I mean, last week I had somebody that asked me, I was at Flanagan's and they asked me, is it true if you get in a car accident, you automatically get $10,000?
What?
I was like, no, that is the furthest thing from the truth, all right? Florida is what we call a no-fault state.
Yeah.
The police officers, their police reports are considered hearsay evidence.
Okay.
They're really just for documenting the incident. A lot of people think, if I'm involved in an accident, depending on who it is, as long as I'm not driver 1, which is a myth, driver 1 is usually the person the police believes is at fault, I can get $10,000. But the crazy thing is Florida doesn't have mandatory bodily injury insurance. So really, we're one of 11 states that don't have mandatory bodily injury insurance. Bodily injury insurance is the insurance coverage that covers the other party after an accident. So if you crash into me today and you don't have bodily injury, if I sue or if I make a claim with your insurance company, there's no insurance to go after. I need to go after you personally.
Wow.
And, it's an unfortunate situation because I got to talk to clients a lot and I got to explain to them, there's a lot of times which we always do our investigation. We send an affidavit a financial affidavit. And that basically goes to the person that caused the accident and they put all their financials, their assets and whatever they have.
And they might owe nothing, right?
Most of the time, if you can't afford the higher insurance policies, you probably don't have a lot of assets.
Right.
And there's times where clients are severely injured the person doesn't really have assets, and you got to have a conversation with the client, because we can go to trial in this case. We could go all the way to litigation. It might take 2 years. We could get $1 million judgment for your injuries against this person. But if that person doesn't have the means to pay you, you'll never see that money.
Wow.
So that whole, if you get in an accident, it's $10,000, that's just wrong.
Right.
And I think, that's a product of Miami being very litigious. Everybody wants to sue somebody in Miami. And, it creates that misconceived notion that, if somebody hits me, I'm automatically getting $10,000. And $10,000, in the grand scheme of things, that's the minimum bodily injury coverage for the state. Other states like Georgia have mandatory $25,000 in bodily injury.
Got it. Which will make more sense now that I think about it.
And it does make sense, because you need, that insurance is necessary, because I've had a client that was ran over by a car.
Wow.
And the crazy thing, it wasn't just any car. It was a brand new Audi A7. She gets ran over, needed multiple surgeries. That person that was driving the Audi A7 purchased the car new. As soon as the insurance was up, they never renewed it. They were driving without insurance.
Wow.
And that's a problem that Miami has, where there's a lot of uninsured drivers. So I always tell clients, and everybody that I ever speak to, make sure you get what's called uninsured motorist coverage in Florida.
Yeah.
Because uninsured motorist coverage, in the event that the other party doesn't have insurance, it covers you. You can get under or uninsured motorist coverage anywhere from $10,000 in coverage to $1 million in coverage. But that is your lifeline. That is your protection, in case that somebody's driving without insurance.
Wow, pretty crazy, man. That's a great piece of advice. So that brings me to my next question. What has been, you've had a lot of mentors, obviously, you mentioned them today here. Mm-hmm. What has been the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That's a hard question. I've had so many mentors and so many people giving me advice, but I definitely think the best piece of advice was probably given to me by probably most of my mentors, and it's just go and do it.
Just don't quit.
And his advice is always just keep chugging along, because you're gonna run into roadblocks every step of the way. You're gonna have an obstacle here, obstacle there. Every day is gonna have another obstacle. Every day is gonna bring a new fire. And I think there's a saying out there, you got to dance in the rain or dance in the storm, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where Travis and I, for a long time, we were worried. We were like, what's our bank account's really low. We had a joint bank account, and we opened it actually in law school, and all the little money we got, we throw it into that joint bank account. And when that bank account would get low, we were like, hey man, like, what are we gonna do? And we still haven't paid ourselves anything. Like, we weren't paying ourselves for the first year we were in practice, pretty much. And we were just like, just keep chugging along. And that's how we got through. And every time, things started looking up. And then, we hit a big case in our first year. We got an amazing result for a minor, one of our clients. Amazing result from a dog bite incident. We got them, 6-figure settlement. Great result. And obviously, we get paid on the compensation we earn. Right. And it gave us a little breathing room. We were like, okay, well, just Troy's advice, just keep chugging along. And every time you have a roadblock, that's what we do.
How do we find you? How do we find you guys?
So we're starting to get on every social media platform. Originally, it was just Instagram. My Instagram's @CubanLawyer.
It's right here, okay?
Travis's Instagram, you're probably going to have a podcast with Travis soon. It's going to be Your Veteran Attorney.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking to hear from him as well.
And our slogan is No Client Left Behind.
Beautiful.
And that's because Travis used to be a U.S. Navy veteran. And, well, he is a veteran.
Yeah.
And during, his time in the military, he wanted to also find a way to advocate for veterans. So we also do veterans benefits practice, which I should have mentioned earlier, but
it's here now.
So our Instagram name for the law firm is No Client Left Behind.
Amazing.
Our website is www.noclientsleftbehind.com, and our TikTok is Dudes in Suits. So that's
and you should check that out, because that's quite fun.
So we're starting our TikTok platform. Travis is learning Spanish on it. We're gonna have a lot of different segments. Travis learning Spanish is called Oye Gringo, or
Yeah.
Dímelo Gringo. And little by little, we're going to keep expanding into social media and really start, hitting it a lot harder and start marketing ourselves, because we truly believe that we're doing great services for our clients. And,
You are, man.
Good Google reviews is the best compliment. We love talking to clients, and we always tell people, no matter what the issue is, what legal issue it is, give us a call. We'll talk to you. We'll, explain. It's hard to get in contact with lawyers.
Yeah.
Give us a call. If we don't practice that area of law, or we don't specialize in it, we can refer you somebody that does, and somebody
Amazing.
that we trust. And that's the biggest thing. We don't want... There's a lot of good lawyers out there. There's a lot of bad lawyers out there. The most important thing is I would never want somebody to deal with a bad lawyer. And, as long as you give us a call, we can point you in the right direction, somebody that we trust and somebody that's gotten good results in the past, and we can lead you in the right direction.
Beautiful. If you could give the audience, in one word, something that they could use to transform either their health, wealth, or relationships, what would it be?
One word?
Yeah.
I would say ambition.
Okay.
And everybody has the grind in them. Everybody has that initial. Everybody wants better.
Right.
But at the same time, you need you need that ambition. And I just completely fell over my thoughts. But
No, I get what you're saying. If I hear you right, your desires have to be matched by the output of work that you put in order to accomplish that, right? So
Exactly.
you need to ambitious, but you also have to put in the work.
100%. 100%.
Beautiful, brother. So I definitely appreciate you having me here.
No, appreciate you.
I just look forward to seeing what you guys were doing in the future, and I'll see you guys next time.